How do you want?
No, I wanted like this.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
I wasn't able to print it out.
Go? Okay, thank you. This is a meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board of the Village of Tequesta. It is March 16th. It is 6:44 PM. May I have a roll call, please? McKenna, if you could do a roll call for us?
Jen Tran,
Here?
Stephen Egan,
Here.
Elizabeth Shower,
Here.
Leslie Dasher,
Here.
Teresa Maggia,
Here.
Sherry Ambrose, Jean Nageldown, here, and Marie Shapiro. Here.
And Madam Chair, just a correction for the record, 5:45, I thought.
Oh,
I missed
what did I
our
say,
place.
6?
I
I'm
think-
sorry, 5:45, I'm sorry. Moving it too far ahead. I'd like to, next item is our approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Our next item is the approval of the previous meeting minutes of July 21st, 2022.
Seems so long ago.
I know.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Our agenda item is SPM 1-23, which is an application from WESTON Dante, I hope I said that correctly, for a site plan modification to install a 6-foot-high bronze aluminum entry gate with two 6-inch by 6-inch by 6 feet high bronze aluminum entry posts per section 78-284D. The subject property is located at 136 Gulfstream Drive. And Mitty, I'll turn it over to you right now.
Thank you, ma'am. This again is a quasi judicial matter, so I'll swear in the applicant and also village staff. Both raise your right hands. Do you both swear from to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and I'll turn back to the Planning and Zoning Board and ask for ex parte disclosures on this item.
Yes, I visited the site.
Okay, anyone else? None. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dante Weston. I am the homeowner and I live at 136 Gulfstream Drive. We purchased the home just under a year ago, I guess, last year. But we grew up in Jupiter and we've been around the area since 1983, which makes me feel a little old. But, it's just over an acre and it's about 90 foot wide and several hundred foot deep. And the goal of coming here today and getting board approval to build a 6.5-foot, two 6.5-foot gates. So total will be 13 foot wide across the driveway, 2 posts, no additional electric or lights or anything like that, and no wall. I know that's kind of an issue with the village, so no wall or anything like that. We'll fill in the blanks with landscaping. So we were hoping to get a approval for that at my personal house, and that's why we're here. Any questions or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'll open the floor right now to the board. Does anyone have questions? Go for it.
Okay. I like your example of the gate. On page 12, well, yeah, it says on this
Right.
page, okay? You have that this is the existing, and then there's a picture on page 6, which is this one, where you have all of the landscaping.
Yeah.
So this one I just wanted as a matter of record, because this really is not existing. But the piece of property, I'm assuming that's got the landscaping, because it's all smaller plants, is the existing property, and not the one that was originally submitted that says existing. He probably was existing when he took the picture, but then he had the landscaping, and then that's just a matter of the record.
That is
Sorry.
correct, and I apologize for the confusion.
You don't have to, because
Okay.
that's happened, that
Yeah.
happens when we take pictures.
When we purchased the property, there was very little landscaping in the front, and we since then added some shrubs, some low shrubs, and podocarpus, I think is the proper name, common plant, yeah.
My other question is, what is the reason for the fence? Because your property goes,
Just the gate.
Just a gate.
I mean, well, the gate.
Yeah, the purpose is several issues: security, privacy, and my family's there with my children, and based on my working, what I do for a living and things like that, we just try to maximize as much security as possible at my house.
Okay, but you don't have a fence like in the front, so they can still get onto your property with their gate in the front.
Well, I mean, in theory, someone could walk through, but, you know, they'd have to drive their car through the bushes, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
You know, in a perfect world, we would be allowed to build a wall as well.
Well, yeah, I know you do.
But I know
yeah.
it's difficult to get in the village, which I
Yeah,
respect.
you wouldn't get it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions? No. Leslie? No. Steve? No? All right, we will open the floor to public comment. Thank you, sir.
Thomas Bradford, 44 Chestnut Trail, Tequesta. I'm looking at the X-Gen survey, and I'm just trying to figure out approximately how many feet away from the pavement is the gate? Does anybody know? Does the owner know?
Go right ahead.
30 feet.
Okay, perfect. The reason I asked is that, you know, traffic can get held up waiting for someone to open their gate through electronics or by manually, and it's always best to have something between 15 or more feet to get them off the road so the traffic doesn't get held up. So 30 feet is adequate and it's fine, so thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any other public comment?
Marie Sapiri. I guess my question was the same, are both the gate posts 10 feet from the edge of the street? That's one of the elements of the requirement of the statute.
30 feet.
Yes.
I think it's 30 feet from the
Street.
beginning, but if you look at the statutory language, it's 10 feet from the edge of the street, was my understanding, or behind the sidewalk. You've got it in the packet. I don't
Yeah.
actually have it in front of me. So I wanted to, and the other question I had was, is the gate symmetrical on both sides? The diagram looked like I guess the right side was longer than the left side. So I wanted to comment on the application process because I think there are things we can improve to make this process clearer and more fair for applicants and provide better information for the board. As I understand it, the question for review is whether the proposal is, quote, compatible with the architecture of the residence and the streetscape. And the applicant carries the burden of showing that they meet both of those elements, the compatibility with the architecture of the residence and the streetscape as well. I wanted to go through both of those as they relate to this application. On the first point, the architecture of the residence, there are two pictures that were included, as you mentioned, and the house is partially obstructed in both of them. As a process matter, we should ask applicants to submit clear photographs so that we can evaluate the gate and the residence. So as a photographic, so that we understand, or in regards to this application, the photographic record that the board has suggests that this gate might not be compatible with the architecture. The house looks like it's a Florida coastal style, possibly with some Mediterranean revival elements in the door and front windows. And the proposed gate doesn't appear to be similar to those. It also appears from the drawing to, like I said, be asymmetrical. I'm not sure about that. I would like some clarification on that. Since a 6-foot tall gate is pretty visually imposing, I think that's important to consider the compatibility with the architecture. On the second element of compatible with the streetscape, I don't think we have any evidence at all in this application. There aren't any pictures of the streetscape and there's no description and I think we should have that information before we're able, and it should be included in every application. So as a process matter, to be fair to applicants, I think they need to be told when they submit an application that they need to show how they think they meet all of those code
Ma'am, you now have
requirements.
less than 30 seconds.
Sure, okay. The other points about the application process are, I think we should have the entire frontage so we understand like what is happening, like clearer pictures, I think is helpful in this case.
Thank you. Any other questions, board?
I did want to, so just for clarification's sake, as you guys may know, as the P&Z board, we have had gates and columns and whatnot that have come before you. As of right now, the code does not allow for fences past the front of the house. However, it does require that if an applicant or homeowner chooses to put a gate and columns, they're allowed to. They just have to come before the board. So what the applicant's doing today is, based on the code, as long as he meets these criteria, which would be that it comes before the board and that the board gives them the approval, then they're meeting the code. So it's really at the board's discretion, of course.
And I will share with the board, I was at the site today. The house directly to the south has an aluminum gate. And I will tell you that subject property is directly across from a cross street. If somebody, and I don't know the name of the street, unfortunately, I just looked around a little bit. In my opinion, if somebody comes down that cross street a little too fast, comes into that turn a little too hot, they're in his front yard. So right now, that is completely open. And the subject matter also has stated that he will, keep the landscaping, correct? He will keep the landscaping that's there, which is done inconsistent with other areas of that street. So bottom line for me is, I don't think this is going to be a major impact where it will be out of place, is where I'm going with this. And that's just from me standing there looking around earlier this afternoon. Have the floor, go for it.
Last month, we did the ordinance and for
The fences.
the fences and stuff, and I was at the council meeting. And Lori brought up a very good statement at the council meeting when we're looking at stuff like this, and he's already addressed it, as well as Marie. I should say Mr. Bradford, that if they're getting a delivery, Lori just wanted to make sure that traffic could still flow, like Amazon, FedEx, whatever, that they be able to pull in. And they're changing that ordinance so to make sure that the criteria in the ordinance that we gave to the council is to make sure that there's enough room for them to go around, which is something that we didn't think about.
In the motion, I believe we put 15-foot setback in that motion. Yes,
Oh, we did?
we did, it's in the motion. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, it was a long night for me. All right, okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions?
Well, I mean, it's not our job to change the code here, but I don't know what plans this gentleman has for his home down the road, so I'm not willing to decide this doesn't match his house.
Mm-hmm.
Because he may be planning to,
Mm-hmm.
renovate his house, I don't know. And just driving down the street, every gate is different.
Mhm.
Every single gate is different. There is no consistency, so I don't have a problem with.
Well, you don't want your gate to look like your neighbor's anyway, you need.
Well, I know, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But,
You need
I mean,
some
every
kind
gate
of-
does already look different.
It's like when you live in Devasta, I mean, if you go home drunk one night, you could end up in your neighbor's house. Everybody's the same.
I know, totally, yeah. So, when you're just driving down the road, you shouldn't be turning your head to look at the
Yeah,
house.
I
You
know.
shouldn't be driving.
And you
Right.
shouldn't be
You
driving.
You should be able to say, I have an aluminum gate that's bronze.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
my house.
and it's in the middle of the night, you can't tell.
Or it looks like this or something, yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
so.
It's better than a pink fence, so.
There you go. All right, board, how would you like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the 6-foot bronze aluminum entry gate.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
All right, our next item is a presentation from Dana Little from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council for the Tequesta Commercial Quarter Master Plan. Welcome, Dana.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. As you stated, my name is Dana Little. I'm the Urban Design Director for Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. It's good to see some of you again. It's been a while since the charrette process and the approval process. Lance and I have, and Nilsa and staff have met a couple of times since the charrette and the approval process, and Lance thought that it would be a good idea to come back and present to you a brief presentation, if you haven't seen it before, of the results of the charrette and the master plan that was developed. Hopefully, items will start to come before you over time as pieces of this plan get implemented in some fashion or another. I don't know that I have a slide that pertains to that strip of land, because I thinned out the presentation quite a bit, but I will tell you, in my personal opinion, while I'd like to take credit for the fact that, the plan is the reason why the code is changing, I think it actually puts it in more consistent with the recommendations of the charrette plan.
Yeah, that's why
Because what we recommended was some form of public purpose. And in fact, it's a sustainability garden, I believe is what we called it. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. Is this the clicker here? Okay, great. Some of you may recall that
It's not working.
maybe I should turn it on. There we go.
Still not working.
Okay, go ahead, go back, Lance.
There we go. Okay. Here is your village. We were charged with looking at primarily the commercial corridors within the village. The balance of the village is residential, which is in perfectly great shape, very desirable place, of course, to live and to raise a family and to work, even if you're lucky enough. But the idea was that there are pressures that are mounting for redevelopment. We see this throughout the region, throughout the state. Commercial corridors transforming into other uses. So we were charged with looking primarily at the commercial corridors. We went through an extensive public process. We had the week-long charrette. Here we are right here at the Village Hall. And the objectives primarily were to, identify, working with the community, identify the appropriate scale and nature of redevelopment, test some of those redevelopment scenarios, and by test, what we mean is actually draw and design concepts to scale, which are illustrated in the master plan. That's not to say that those ideas and designs are etched in stone, but they represent the principles that were behind the discussions that we had with the community. Where a building should go, where parking should go, the size and scale of buildings, appropriate uses, etc. And the visual component of it is just that. Our work is very graphic. It's very, in a positive way, we hope, and very visual, so that you can look at things and make your own determination about, scale and size and character. And also, very importantly, was to provide recommendations for regulatory changes over time. We conducted over 30 individual interviews. We had a host committee. Did we not, Ms. Schauer?
Yes, we did.
And we interviewed residents, council members, business owners, and then we did quite a bit of upfront detail, data and analysis. And we kicked off our public charrette. It was a 5-day charrette. We kicked off our workshop on
April 9th.
when was that? April 9th, I'm sorry, it's right there, of last year. And it was held here, the workshop was held here in the Village Hall. And for those of you that attended, you know that it was very well attended. We had a lot of participation. We had a lot of children. Thank you. That provided great input. We encourage children's participation because they remind us of things that we've forgotten. It'd be nice to have a shade tree once in a while, or a water fountain.
A zoo.
A zoo, exactly, and a water park, But honestly, it was a great way for us to solicit input throughout that Saturday. We had 6 different plans that were developed that identify the communities and the neighbors' ideas. And this became sort of the punch list for us to start to develop the plan over the course of the week. Mr. Bradford is there holding court, telling us about all of the good ideas that we should be doing on the commercial corridors. I'm not going to read all this to you, but shade trees, of course, is always one of the most important things. You have a beautiful tree canopy throughout the city. The commercial corridors, however, FEC in particular, which is challenging considering the ownership, but, there are some holes in the canopy. Paradise Park, was a big part of discussion. The property had the lease that the village had for the property expired not long before the charrette, so there was a lot of discussion and debate about what is going to happen with that. We knew that there was potentially some development proposals for that, so we took a stab at illustrating some of the key elements that should be part of a future redevelopment there. Safety at the intersection of Village and Old Dixie. This is why we do the process that we do. I would have never known that Village and Old Dixie was an issue, that intersection and that connection was an issue without the input of the community. So we went through the remainder of that week, and of course the overall mantra was maintain the village scale and character. We can grow, we can redevelop, but we don't want to become someplace else. And so how do we keep the scale and character that we have, understanding that there's also legal limitations and entitlements that are in place. So we have to triangulate with those parameters. We then transformed your council chambers into our design studio. And it was a wonderful 4 days that we were here. The studio was open to the public from 9 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And this is where we developed all the ideas that went into, most of the ideas that went into the charrette report. We even had a class full of children come in on Wednesday. So this is the plan. The plan was submitted in draft form in August of last year, and it was actually adopted by council in January of this year. We went through, I think, 2 workshop presentations and a couple rounds of review and revisions and update. Got a lot of good input from council. This is the overall plan. We identified 12 different specific projects throughout the village. I'm going to just touch on a few of them in the interest of time. Believe it or not, everyone loves Gallery Square, but the discussion was it may change over time. And if it does, what should it look like? And so we illustrated, we created a narrative, and we illustrated drawings that show that it is a gathering space for the community. And so that's an integral part of whatever redevelopment might occur at some point in the future, be it wholesale or incremental. The intent is not to push Gallery Square away or to push it out, but to have a backup plan in case it does redevelop at some point. And that's always a good thing to have. I mentioned Village Parkway and North Old Dixie. This is not a new idea. We know that the idea of a roundabout or some sort of traffic intervention should occur there. This is an important connection to those that go to Publix. I understand this is the locals route into Publix. But it is a long straight shot. And so it can be dangerous there. And not only that, you're encouraging pedestrian and bicycle traffic in that area. So our recommendation was to go back and revisit the roundabout idea with Palm Beach County and try to get some traction there. You are very fortunate, and then you have the linear park along FEC. Not every community has that. However, it could be embellished a bit. I did mention, some lack of shade, bless you, Lance. The FEC, it's their property. They're not always open to the idea of, large shade trees due to conflicts with their operations. But, so we illustrated a trailhead down at the southern edge at Tequesta Drive and Old Dixie, but also, at certain special locations identifying either entry monuments and shade structures, etc., because it is heavily used and you want to encourage that even further. Paradise Park, we went through a number of different design iterations, understanding that, redevelopment of this site ultimately is probably imminent. However, it's very important that some memory of this being a central gathering place, a community space, is important. So all of the iterations that we came up with included some form of civic open space, significant civic open space, not the open space that just leads to perimeter berms and landscape islands and things like that, but truly a gathering space. And so we offered in the implementation section some ideas about what those sizes should be, and that they can be treated either as a park or as a plaza. This has a bit of a combination of both, but it has always been intended to be your town center. And And so as it reaches fruition, finally, it needs to maintain those original intentions. So again, this is just another image. This shows the public space here. There was actually a lot of discussion. Should the central gathering space, the square, which is shown there on Tequesta Drive, should it be on Tequesta or Bridge? And I think the conclusion was you'll have much more exposure on Tequesta. Bridge is a different context, and we tried to address Bridge as well. Bridge has a great local business feel that's consistent with the entire village. Remember, we were coming here, this is our first charrette that we did, public charrette, in nearly 5 years, 2.5 of which because of COVID. So this was the first charrette that we did out of COVID. And we were astonished at the level of occupancy of your businesses in town. Where so many businesses had gone dark in other places during COVID. It was astonishing to see how many local businesses you have that made it through. And Bridge Road's a great example of that. However, Bridge Road is a weird condition. It's a very wide right-of-way. There's asphalt all over the place. There are some drainage issues. And then ultimately, hopefully, you'll have part of the Paradise Park or Town Center project looking at Bridge Road. It won't be turning its back to it. So we came up with different street sections that show that how you could minimize the asphalt, you can increase the walkability of it, increase the level of shade with native trees, and also because the road is so wide, the right-of-way is so wide, you could get on-street parking as well as a central bioswale, where you could throw the water into it, treat it before it discharges out somewhere else. So there's enough space in there to do a lot of really interesting things that would make it really a great local street. Quickly, just some of the code recommendations. I have to be honest. Our discussions in the workshops with your council really push this component of it much further. You know, the initial comments that we heard from council were, these are great ideas, but what do we do with them? You know what I mean? How do we move this forward? If we decide that we want to advance some of these ideas or some of these concepts, what are the instructions to staff? What do we do? What's the first step, second step? And then also specifically, how do we change the code in different areas? So we went back and really investigated, the recommendations and really the context of your commercial corridors. And we basically posited that you have 3 primary commercial districts. You've got what we call Village Center North. That's Publix. And that's, I think, where Starbucks has gone. And it is a more regional sort of destination, if you will. It doesn't have the same intimacy or character that some of the other, locations in town do. You've got that, which is fine. But, we need to recognize that and maybe not try to turn it into something that it's not. You have the town center area, Paradise Park. That has a zoning allowance and uses that are greater than the neighborhoods. And then you've got what we call the village center, which is really Gallery Square. And so that the rules over time, as they are modified to hopefully implement the plan, are contextual. The rules that apply to village center may be different than the rules that apply to town center, just because it's of a different scale and character. To that effect, we looked at street sections, how do you discipline, future sidewalks as projects come in and they are building on, say, Old Dixie or on Bridge Road. What is the DNA of the sidewalk and the streetscape? That's very important to make sure that you've got space for trees, people, and cars. There was a lot of discussion throughout the charrette process about drive-thrus, and I think that may have had something to do with the new coffee shop that was coming in, but I could be wrong. And in fact, I had many conversations with the mayor and council about this as well. Drive-thrus can be handled in a way that, and gas stations even, in a way that are far more urban, in a good way, and architecturally sensitive. The old idea of just sticking, the standard pumps and asphalt out on the corner and the convenience part is way in the back. There has been, evolution over time to sort of reverse that. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing scenario. It's not like, well, we can't have any drive-throughs, and because there might be some legal challenges there too. And that's something that we discussed. But we wanted to offer that if you do decide to allow drive-throughs, maybe in that village center area up where Publix is, there are better ways to treat them architecturally. Lot of discussion. Marie Superior was a big part of this during the shred about urban street stormwater standards, green infrastructure, bird-friendly glazing. We've got a whole section on native and Florida-friendly species. So hopefully this will be a resource for you as a village moving forward to make recommendations or even require certain streetscaping types and infrastructure. There's a section on what we call frontage standards, which actually provide dimensional criteria for what is a storefront, what is an arcade, those sort of things. Again, this is a resource to help advance the quality of the projects that you get. There's even a section on architectural standards, design standards, which we included because there was some discussion about that. I don't know that having specific architectural design guidelines is in your immediate future, but we included that in there if only to provide sort of a framework of how those are typically established. So finally, the process, we had the pre-charrette efforts that we went through. We had the 5-day public charrette. We had a couple of work-in-progress presentations, draft presentations, and then, as I said, the plan itself was adopted by council on November 10th in 2022. It was another project that was adopted in January. So I'm here to answer any questions or provide any more information if I can. But again, it was our pleasure and honor to work with the village of Tequesta. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Little, appreciate it. Right now, I'd like to open the floor to the board. Do you have any questions for Mr. Little? I knew you did. I see all your little flags.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Page 26.
You have to forgive me. I remembered my presentation, but I forgot my printed copy, so I have this
Okay,
loaded
it's
on my
the
phone.
tour of the plan. We're dealing with the Tequesta Greenway, basically with Waterway Road, because it's a private road, and you've got here that the sidewalk, just so that you can walk down, but that's a private road, Dana?
Yes. That road you're saying the right-of-way, it's not public right-of-way?
That road belongs to Waterway, I don't remember the name of, Waterway Village? They maintain that road. That's
Okay.
not a county road, that's their own private road. And I don't know if we would ever have access to go down into that particular area. I'm sorry, when I read that today, I didn't have time to do homework.
No, it's okay. This was an idea that
I remember.
There are
when
people that are currently walking and biking back and forth, and so we thought over time, if there was a way to negotiate some form of, passageway out of the street along those commercial properties to the north, that would be ideal.
Now, I'm back onto the tour of the plan,
Okay.
the US Highway 1, the complete and it's like page 32. But, we're talking about, having additional shade trees and to make it, more appealing. And I like the plan that you have. But I was thinking, and maybe this is, I don't know how the council would feel about this, but this is something I just remember, and again, I'm showing how long I've been living here. On US 1, years ago, there was a gentleman that always came to council meetings, and he's dead now, and his name was Stan Jacobs. He went on US 1 to every property owner and got money from them and came to the village so that we could put queen palms in there. So when I was going through this, and I think I mentioned that to you
Yes.
when we were doing it, but maybe it could be something that we could do as an incentive, not have somebody go door to door the way they did. You could do that years ago, you can't do that now. But, I mean, to give property owners along US 1 and possibly like along here, an incentive to give them a little hiccup or, you know, an incentive to put additional landscaping to make it look nicer and that we're not driving through, you know, a whole
Right.
curb thing. And the other thing, my other big thing was when we were talking, because I really like that traffic calming circle on Village Boulevard. Do we give a copy of this to our county commissioner? So that it might give them the incentive to possibly, so that they know that we've spent the money, we've done the charrette, but these are some of the recommendations, and that's a county road.
Right.
Just to give it to them and maybe just give them something to think about.
I think that's an excellent idea. There's gonna have to be collaboration
Oh,
between
most
the village, the
definitely.
county, FEC, the state, you know, US 1, obviously. So it's your document to share with whoever you'd like. And as the Regional Planning Council, we're happy to help, you know, and I mean this, you know, not as new work, but as part of this effort, you know, if there's a desire to meet with county officials to try to advance this further or present, you know, whatever, we're at your pleasure. But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, when I was on the council, I worked hand in hand with Karen Marcus, I mean, you know, along with Mr. Bradford, and we got so much done and we used to have monthly meetings, so, but I think that this document would be good so that I know that they don't think that we're a sleepy town, but I just want them to know that, you know, we're addressing things and that we're a little bit, you know, we're progressive.
Sure. I will tell you, we did give a presentation almost identical to this I gave the presentation to our council, the Regional Planning Council.
Oh.
Periodically, we'll give them a presentation just to let them know like what we're up to. And it was a full house and it was very well received. You know, our board, it's a 28-member board. And it's 1/3 county
Yeah.
commissioners, 1/3 city commissioners, and 1/3 gubernatorial appointees. And so I know a couple of county commissioners have seen it, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think direct attention would be an excellent idea.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Sorry.
No problem.
No, that was
Don't be
great.
sorry.
Thank you.
You're great, thanks. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask, what is our job with this tonight?
This is a presentation.
Okay, but we're not.
This
we're
is
not
all it is,
recommending-
this is a presentation.
Okay.
Information.
Okay.
So the intent behind Mr. Little being here is actually because throughout this process, you guys didn't really get a chance to see. I know Liz was on the steering committee and whatnot, but you guys were not directly involved per se. So this was more so, since this is more of a visioning plan, and US 1 is a major one, but there's a lot of commercial corridors that this plan, if some things are implemented or not implemented or whatnot, might come before you. We thought it'd be a good idea for you to actually get a presentation of what happened.
Well, and I did have questions about, I know one of the ones was, there's some on-street parking on there's one lane and you're supposed to parallel park. I was concerned about backups if there's parallel parking on the street.
Is that
Traffic backing up.
Bridge? Is that Bridge Road?
Bridge Road. Is it Bridge Road?
Okay.
Just traffic backing up on when there's only one lane.
Yeah, that's limited just to Bridge Road, you know, for that short section. And the only reason why, it's not one way, I mean, but it is one lane.
Well, per.
Right,
each
per
direction,
side,
right.
separated by that bioswale in the middle.
Okay.
And that's what's driving that. I mean, the businesses really need, you know, the on-street parking. It's lifeblood for them. So we don't ever really want to get rid of it, you know. We'd like to discipline it. Because right now on Bridge Road, you've got cars that are kind of stacking 2 and 3 deep in some cases. But the drainage, our understanding is an issue too. And so that was a way to try to achieve, you know, all of the above. I think, you know, it's, you know, that's something to discuss. I mean, I would go, you know, look at it and think about it in those terms. Again, it's a short stretch.
Well, and in case that carried over to other streets, I guess is my
Right.
concern.
Yeah,
And then
and-
Also, changing everything to mixed use, would that require, I mean, the village is not planning to take these properties and develop them.
No.
This is only if the owners of the properties chose to sell their.
So the whole intent, this was more of like a visioning. So just to say, because I actually was involved in the charrette process, so I was giving them the codes and whatnot, and they were kind of designing based off of what could go there with the current regulations. So for example, mixed use, the mixed use area, which is Paradise Park and some of those other areas, what can they do if a developer were to buy it or whoever were to buy it and put something there? What would the village like to see in those areas?
Well, there was something about Gallery Square about being.
Right,
mixed
Gallery
Right.
Square, currently, I don't think mixed use
No.
is permitted there.
No,
So
but-
that would be a code change over
use.
time
Right,
if
but
it was.
wasn't that one of the ones that was?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, what I'm,
Shows these
yes.
very tall buildings.
yes, and what I'm saying is that if at some point, it's actually good that it doesn't have residential there at this point.
Yes.
Because that's leverage for the village. So somebody came in and wanted to redevelop it, you could say, well, look, we've got these plans, you want to do mixed use, you're not currently allowed to do mixed use. We'll work with you to make it happen so long as you implement the pieces of the plan or whatever the vision is that you like.
Yeah, my only concern with that would be just all residential and suddenly this tall building. And then also when the Arts Center wanted to build 2 stories, I don't know where they are with that, there were complaints about parking. And so if you're gonna add more stories and apartments and things like that, that was a concern for me as to if they were complaining about the Art Center taking up too many parking and they had to make a deal with the church behind them. And so that concerns me about adding more stories and more cars.
All right.
I have a question. Was there any discussion of traffic flow at the west side of Beach Road where it meets Old Dixie? Was there any discussion of that by chance?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, my understanding is that there was already plans and improvements in place there at the odd intersection where they come together.
Well, when you're going from US 1, when you're going down Beach Road, part of it right now is no bridge traffic, as I call it.
Right.
But if you're trying to make a left out of there during drive time, that's very sporty.
Okay.
And that's why I was wondering, I just didn't know if it was talked about. I was just
No, it
wondering if
really
was.
wasn't.
No.
As I recall, no.
It's county.
Well, it's county, but I think, as I recall, that there were already DOT plans in place for that.
Yeah,
They
we
haven't-
weren't privy to any of that information at that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Board, any other questions? All right, I'd like to open it, thank you, Mr. Little.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
I'd like to
time.
open it to public comment. Tom, public comment? Marie, no? Anybody? Okay, we will close public comment.
So this isn't a quasi judicial matter, so there's no voting for this.
Right.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Little.
Dana.
That was,
Thank
it's
you,
very
Dana.
interesting. Thank you very much.
So much work.
Yeah, he did. It was a lot of work.
And I'll open the floor once more to board comments. Anybody got anything? No? Okay, may I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I do have one staff thing.
Okay.
I would like to publicly acknowledge Liz for her award that she won at the last week's council meeting. She is the she received an award from the mayor, so I just wanted to let everyone know that she did receive that. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Congratulations, Liz. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, may I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And now it's warm.
You know it.
6:30.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Are you still,